About an hour and 25 minutes into the 1995 serial killer thriller Copycat, a main character dies in the most anticlimactic and dramatic way possible. His death is random, seemingly unrelated to the plot, and is made unintentionally hilarious by this shot. It's not often that a moment in the story catches me off guard this much, so the video was going to be me analyzing this scene and seeing what leads up to it, or if it is in fact pointless. And then I was going to ask the question, does everything that happens in a story need to have a point or go anywhere, and especially if that moment is a main character dying? And then I researched the movie and rewatched it a couple of times, and now I really want to talk about everything. Because while this movie is a hot mess, it is exactly the kind of movie I want to watch when I say I want a 90s thriller. Copycat unfortunately released a month after this movie, and while Seven is one of the best movies of all time and is regarded as a masterpiece, Copycat got lost in a sea of other 90s thrillers. And that's a shame because there's a lot to love about Copycat, from the way it handles its main character's mental health and trauma.
They made a movie about female trauma.
To the way the internet and technology are used in 1995, and of course, crime scene donut. And not that you asked, but this is where the "what is this quarter pounder with cheese doing in my pocket" TikTok sound comes from.
Hey, wait a minute. What's this quarter pounder with cheese doing in my pocket?
So what's Copycat about?
It's a movie about trauma.
Dr. Helen Hudson, played by Sigourney Weaver, is a psychologist that specializes in serial killers. When we first meet her at the start of the movie, she's giving a lecture about serial killers, and she asks all the white men between 20 and 35 to stand up, because 9 out of 10 serial killers are white men between 20 and 35. And then she's like, ladies, look around. Iconic behavior. After the lecture is over, she gives this woman excellent advice on how to not get killed by a serial killer.
Don't park next to vans.
Thank you.
And then she goes to the bathroom, but whoopsies, I guess being an expert witness for the prosecution is kinda dangerous, because this deranged man attacks her and tries to kill her.
Sigourney Weaver, she's so unbelievable. She wouldn't talk to me. I didn't meet her till the premiere. She would not. Every time I came around, she went the other way. She's like, I don't want to be around that guy.
The cop guarding her bathroom goes in to try to save her, and he dies. And that is later referenced in the dumbest way possible. Helen, however, does survive the attack, and we jump forward 13 months, and she is now a severe agoraphobe with PTSD, spending her days slamming down pills with whiskey, chatting with strangers in chat rooms, and owning noobs at chess. And also, I guess the lectures and the books have made her insanely rich, because this is her apartment in San Francisco. We then meet this movie's Mulder and Scully, Reuben and MJ, as they're trying to track down a serial killer. We also meet their co-worker slash MJ's ex, Nico. Remember Nico? He's about to get really important. Helen, who remember has severe agoraphobia,
She's agoraphobic.
She's afraid of spiders, too?
has to grab her newspaper from the hall, but the damn paperboy put it too far away again, and it's a whole thing. She eventually gets the newspaper and finds out about the third victim in the serial killer case, and decides to take matters into her own hands and call the police station. Again. They apparently think she's a crazy crank caller until MJ hears her name and decides to dig a little deeper. This is when we find out that Helen previously testified against her attacker Daryl Lee at his double homicide trial, but he apparently escaped and attacked her. And this is also when MJ's boss says this.
That the woman that got the cop killed?
I told you it was stupid. Reuben and MJ make their way over to Helen's house to ask her to help with the case, but she thinks Daryl Lee Cullum has escaped, which makes sense. They tell her, no, we're here about you calling our office 14 times. We want to work with you. They throw some case files on the table, and she has a panic attack and passes out.
This is what trauma looks like.
Of course, she does later decide to help them because they left the case files there, and also because her assistant slash gay best friend Andy kind of bullies her into it. After reviewing the case files, she calls Reuben and MJ over, and she's like, this guy loves the golden oldies. And they're like, what? And she's like, well, obviously, duh, I mean, oh my god, he's copying the Boston Strangler. And she makes this face. Reuben then asks why somebody that's been dead for 20 years and why not copy someone more recent. And Helen is like, I don't know. Remember, 13 months ago, she was writing books and giving lectures about serial killers, but now she has no idea. No clue. Not a single clue.
20 years of clinical experience and having serial killers on the brain.
And then we get to my favorite scene, because it's very funny from a 2025 perspective. Helen is online gaming not on 3 monitors, but on 3 separate computers with internet access in the year 1995. She's owning noobs at chess and trash talking them on computer number 1. Computer number 2 is her digital fish tank, and computer number 3 is her chat room / email computer. She then gets an anonymous email on her 3rd computer, and you know what? It's better if I just show you. So Helen calls over Reuben and MJ, and she's like, well, this girl is next, but because her face has been altered, they can't tell what she actually looks like. They then ask, can we rewind this video? Or how long is this video? Maybe we can back it up. And she says it's 30 seconds, to which Reuben says, oh no, the file is too big. And then Helen is like, oh my God, back it up to tape. And then MJ asks Reuben, who hasn't done anything so far, by the way, oh, why are you so good at PCs? And he's like, I spent my youth at arcades. He tries to back it up to tape, but oh no, I guess the killer didn't internet very well, and it self-destructed because of a virus. Helen pushes Reuben aside and sits down at the computer because, as the movie established, she is a total hacker. I mean, she has 3 PCs and a laptop in the year 1995, and they're all connected to the internet. But no, she can't find it on C drive either, guys. It's gone.
It's not on C drive and it's not in list. The utilities aren't retrieving it.
You think you put a virus in there?
I love that in 1995, it was enough explanation to go, yeah, he booby-trapped it, guys. It's gone. Also, Dermot Mulrooney's character says this.
He's hacked into her internet address.
Which, yeah, that's definitely what happened. Technology plays a bigger part in this movie than I thought for a movie from 1995. There's a lot of photoshopping, video editing, video collaging. And unlike in 7, where they go to the library to figure out what John Doe is doing and what he's referencing, Helen has her own personal serial killer Wikipedia, and she can just type in keywords and then finds the killer that the copycat is trying to copy, because another victim has been found, but this murder has a different MO. So Helen hears a bunch of keywords and types them into her serial killer database, and then she's like, oh, he must have switched from the Boston Strangler to the Hillside Strangler. And then she says this.
Very witty, our guy.
Which, Helen, people are dying.
There's people that are dying.
Oh, and by the way, we now have 2 killers in that specific order, and Helen has no idea why. No idea.
20 years of clinical experience and having serial killers on the brain.
Another banger scene opens with Helen getting to bed and discovering some ants in her bed. And unlike the rest of the movie, where she's just been swearing a lot, she responds like this.
Good grief.
And it turns out there's not just 2 or 3 ants, there's a bunch of ants, and she, instead of being like, whoa, not my problem, tries to like push the mattress aside to see what's under there, and it's a book with a severed finger being used as a bookmark, which apparently attracts ants. And that's already a lot to unpack, but the book is the memoir written by Daryl Lee Cullum, her attacker from the start of the movie, and it's left there by the copycat killer, who has been in and out of her house the whole movie. I'm telling you about this now because this is also when Reuben and MJ find out about it, because she's been slamming so many pills with whiskey that she thought she was hallucinating. Anyway, they decide to set up a Skype call between Helen's house and St. Quentin to talk to Daryl Lee, because they think he might know the copycat killer. And he does, because he's serial killer Jesus, and the copycat killer is one of his disciples, and the goal is to kill Helen because she's the pinup girl of serial killers or something. Daryl Lee then conveniently has information about where the copycat killer is going to be tonight, because Daryl Lee has sold his semen to him. So, well, not actually his semen, because even Daryl Lee thought that was weird. So he filled a bag with soap, gave it to one of his buddies, and then that buddy is going to bring it to the copycat killer tonight. MJ calls Reuben and tells him about a handoff, and also says to him, well, you're off the Chinatown case now. The Chinatown case has been a background thing for the whole movie, but it's about to get really important. MJ goes over to the station, but meanwhile, Nico, remember Nico? Nico puts a gun in his drawer, but leaves it unlocked because he gets distracted, and a suspect on the Chinatown case that is sitting right near his desk grabs into the drawer and grabs the gun. Poor Reuben then comes over to try to uncuff that guy and give him a donut, but he gets grabbed and used as a human shield. The suspect tries to backpedal out of the police station with Reuben as a human shield followed by police, but MJ comes up behind him. And to the movie's credit, it is established in the first scene we meet her that she doesn't believe in using deadly force and will always go for the shoulder or the brachial nerve in case of a human shield situation, because that would cause the gunman to drop his gun.
The shoulder of his gun hand's exposed. You hit the brachial nerve, he drops the gun, you read him as Miranda's.
Yeah.
Plus, you haven't taken a human life.
So she does that, and the suspect goes down, and Reuben and MJ are celebrating in slow motion. But I guess nobody does anything in those few seconds because the suspect has time to roll over to his other hand, grab the gun, sit up slightly, and shoots Reuben in the back before any of the police officers there can jump on the suspect, or Reuben can do anything to get out of the way or grab his gun from his ankle as he's trying to do. So nobody has a chance to intervene in that situation, despite the whole thing taking like 3 business days. Also, as an aside, we don't know this character or their motivations, but it feels kind of weird to me that if your human shield thing fails, why would you then shoot that cop that you were using as human shield when you're already surrounded by police? It doesn't make sense. And you know, I could nitpick this scene even more and saying that when Reuben gets shot, he's like fully bent over, so it's probably not even possible for the killer to hit him from this angle, or when he goes down, you don't see an entry wound, but Reuben is dead, and we're left with MJ looking at a puddle of blood and a box of donuts, which, wait a minute.
Hey, wait a minute.
Wasn't that box the other way around, and was there only one donut before? Because the rest of that box looked empty. Early on in this video, I asked if everything that happens in a story needs to have a point or go anywhere. And I think in this case, where a main character dies, the answer is yes. I do really like how MJ's decision to go for the brachial nerve or the shoulder is set up early and is fully paid off by this point. But Nico, being the guy to cause his death, doesn't really go anywhere because he didn't do this on purpose. He's immediately remorseful and wishes he was dead himself, and like Reuben, disappears from this plane of existence after this happens. Can random things happen? In real life, sure, but this is a story, and the point of the story wasn't, in my opinion, being a police officer can be dangerous. So I think Reuben dying makes sense in the grander scheme of the whole story, but it would have been way less anticlimactic if it was actually related to the main case of the story. When MJ goes to Helen's house to break the news that they missed the soapy jizz handoff because Reuben was busy getting killed by a random, they hear part of Helen's lecture from the opening of the movie over her answering machine. They then discover that every killer that the copycat has been copying so far has been mentioned by Helen in her lecture in that specific order.
20 years of clinical experience and having serial killers on the brain.
And now we know he's going to do Dahmer next, so he's going to kill a man, but ruh-roh, we then cut to Andy, Helen's gay best friend / assistant, getting a spiked drink from the copycat killer. And if you're hoping that this is one of those movies where they use their information to save the person in time, no, this is what we see of Andy next. This is another effect of Reuben's death, because if Reuben didn't die in the police station, they would have made the handoff in time, and they could have caught the killer before he killed Andy. Andy and Reuben's death are also designed to make sure that the final showdown is only between Helen, MJ, and the copycat killer. Because the copycat killer is one of Daryl Lee Cullum's disciples, and he wants to restage Helen's attack from the start of the movie to the tiniest detail, but actually kill her this time and film it for serial killer Jesus. So he kills the guards at Helen's door, kidnaps Helen, dresses her in the red outfit that she somehow hasn't burned after being murdered in it like a year ago, and then takes her back to the lecture hall and hangs her in the toilet. He leaves a tape for MJ to come save her, but come alone, which at this point she doesn't have any choice because Reuben is dead, Nico has resigned. MJ busts into the bathroom and gets grabbed from behind by the copycat killer who was pretending to be the police officer's corpse, and he does the whole stick 'em or shoot 'em routine, but MJ does the same thing that Sandra Bullock does in Miss Congeniality and gets out from under his grip.
Solar plexus, instep.
He still shoots her twice, though, and she goes down on the ground. He tries to slice her throat, but Helen quickly thinks, hey, this guy wants his crime scene to be perfect like my first attack, so she jumps down the toilet and actually hangs herself. He then shoots her down and she falls to the ground, but when MJ got shot, the mirror shattered, so she has a piece of mirror and she stabs him. A chase ensues and Helen flees to the roof and gets over her agoraphobia because it's better than getting killed by a serial killer. And the serial killer then says this.
Hey, Helen! Looks like I cured the agoraphobia!
Which I didn't catch the first 3 times I saw the movie, but it's very funny. Helen then decides, you know what, if I'm gonna die, I might as well laugh about it, so she maniacally laughs in the face of her attacker when MJ comes up behind them and unloads her entire gun into the copycat killer. He has a gun in his hand. She doesn't bother with the brachial nerve this time. He has the gun in his hand the whole time, but she just unloads that entire clip into him, just pew, pew, pew.
Boom, 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 boom.
And this is when I realized that that is another effect of Reuben's death. Earlier in the movie, when they are at the shooting range, we see that Reuben would unload his entire gun because just in case. And then MJ teaches him, like, no, that's not the way we do it. You go for the brachial nerve, minimal force.
You shredded him.
What can I say? I'm an intuitive cop.
But now, beautifully, she has learned that that gets people killed, so police brutality is super cool. Circling back to Reuben's death, I think the reason it stood out so much to me, outside of the distracting donuts at the crime scene, was that the causes for it felt very flimsy. The whole scene and its outcome hinges on MJ's belief that you shouldn't use deadly force and that you always should try to defuse a situation first.
You hit the brachial nerve, he drops the gun.
The movie then proves her wrong by killing Reuben and showing her your way of thinking about things is wrong, and that teaches her to actually use force, which causes her to kill the copycat killer in the final scene of the movie.
Boom, 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 boom.
If Reuben was still alive by this point or gotten killed by the copycat killer, she wouldn't have learned this lesson, but I guess then also Andy would have been alive and the whole final showdown would have been different. So yeah, this death feels kind of unearned and pointless, but it has way more connections to the plot than I thought, and the way that characters will behave is set up early in the movie. What hasn't been set up is that Nico is bad at his job or neglectful. It's only been set up so far that he doesn't like Reuben, who isn't even around for him to unlock the drawer, so I don't know. I don't think Reuben ever would have made it to the end of the story. I think by the time he dies, he actually outlived his purpose to the plot. However, I would have preferred it if he died in a way that was more connected to the story, like how a bunch of cops trying to protect Helen die. So that's Copycat, a movie that probably would have been remembered better if it didn't release within 4 weeks of this one.
What's in the box?
It's not the best 90s thriller out there, it's pretty dated.
He's hacked into her internet address.
And while watching, I lost count of the amount of continuity and editing mistakes, but I've also had a lot of fun rewatching this movie for this video and seeing and hearing new things every single time.
The only thing I can figure these girls had in common is they all own vibrators.
It's a tool of survival.
And I don't think that's just my 90s thriller bias. I think this is really a fun ride, especially if you pretend it's a long episode of a police procedural.
It's nostalgia, but it's nostalgia based on trauma.
Anyways, thanks for watching and justice for Reuben.